Joining me now is Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore, who was in the House chamber for the president's speech last night. He is Maryland's first black governor. So, Governor Moore, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
It is great to see you. It's our first interview since you are officially the governor.
Yes, it's so great to be with you. It really is. Thank you. It feels great.
I know you used to come on the program when you were in Baltimore City, and there was a lot going on there.
Yes, yeah.
So you know all of these issues. But last night, you were there. The president seemed in his element.
He did. He did. It was a great speech because also I can tell you as Maryland's governor, he was speaking directly to Maryland last night. Well, because if you look at the issues that he focused on, when he talks about infrastructure, the fact that just since I've been governor, you know, we were there together to announce a historic investment, billions of dollars investment in the Frederick Douglass Tunnel, which is going to create 30,000 jobs. That we invested $5 million going into broadband equity and broadband expansion. Whether when he was talking about reproductive rights, where I've said I want Maryland to be a safe haven for abortion rights, and he spoke directly to that. When he talked about capping the price of insulin at $35. These are issues that Marylanders care about. And so to see the president speaking directly to the things that we care about, that we talk about, and that we're working on was just incredibly heartening as the governor.
Well, in fact, aren't those the issues that American voters, aren't those the middle-class issues that American
That's exactly
voters
right. And that's what I think he did such a brilliant job of, was he was speaking directly to the soul of the people. You know, people right now, I think there's an understanding that while we've made progress, we still have so much further to go, that we can go faster, that we can go bold. And I think about some of the initiatives that we've led on in Maryland, whether it is making Maryland the first state in this country to have a service year option for all high school graduates, or making historic investments in public education. All those things are able to be done because we have a strong partner in Washington who's helping us and supporting us in that work. And so he really is speaking to the soul of the people. And he's saying, as if we can work together, if we are divided, we can't win. But if we stand united, we can't lose.
Well, you mentioned the tunnel and the fact that he was just there in your first answer, and it will be the Frederick Douglass Tunnel.
That's right.
I know you were sworn into office with your hand over the Frederick Douglass Bible, which is so moving, the great abolitionist.
That's right.
But
great Marylander.
The great Marylander, who lived on a plantation, by the way, in the Eastern Shore.
That's right.
As a slave. But the fact is that won't be built for a while. Is he going to? And the polls show that people are not giving him credit for the legislation, for the Inflation Reduction Act, for instance, and they won't see the results of that in time for the election campaign.
No, but I think that they will. So many of the initiatives that have been done, the billions of dollars that have already been dispensed, you're already seeing it. In the state of Maryland, for example, you know, we have already now put towards $10 million that's going towards clean buses. We've already seen the impact on healthcare implications, and also for the veterans community. You know, we made the largest investment in tax cuts for veterans in our state's history, but that also comes on the tail end of the president signing an act that's eliminating and treating people who have burn pit and exposed to burn pits in Afghanistan, where I served with the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan. We saw directly the impacts of these burn pits, and to see the president already taking leadership and already how that's having direct impacts on Marylanders and people around the country. And so the president is both making long-term investments in things that will impact us for generations, but also we're seeing the direct impacts right now of how the leadership and how this partnership from Washington is impacting people at the local level.
Now, one of the things that he did last night that was so moving with Tyree Nichols' parents in the gallery was to talk about police reform and to talk, as no American president has at a State of the Union, about the talk.
Yes.
He addressed what black parents, black and brown parents know so deeply, is how they teach their children to interact with police. How meaningful was that to you?
Incredibly. You know, I remember when I first saw that video, how heartbreaking it was just watching the level of barbarism that they show to Mr. Nichols, and how that would be horrific if it was done to him by anybody. But the fact that it was done to him by people whose job it was to protect him. And I didn't just see that as a governor. I didn't just see it as the only black governor in this country. I saw it as a human being. And trying to and seeing their parents, his parents there, who are just heroes to all of us because they have taken this pain and turned it into a purpose, was remarkable to see. But I think that their point that they made to the president that he shared with all of us was a really important one, is that there must be something good that can come of this. And that's why it is imperative on all of us at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level, for all parties to be involved to make sure that these reforms that are taking place at all levels of government, that they are strengthened, that they are reinforced, and that they are actually going to be permanent, because we cannot just continue having tragedy after tragedy happen in a way and forcing families to continue to go through this.
And I know you've got to go, but how important was it to you, given your own personal history, knowing as a parent and as a black child and now a black man, that he was using this platform to say this to America, to white America?
It was incredibly powerful, because to see the president of the United States acknowledging our pain, acknowledging our frustration, acknowledging the fact that my mother had to have a talk with me, that many other people did not have to have the same talk with their children, the same talk that I will have to prepare to have with my children. Watching the president of the United States acknowledging that and saying, but our job is to make sure that those talks don't have to keep happening, was incredibly important for all of us to be able to see.
Governor Moore, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It means a lot to me to have you here.
It means a lot to me. Thank you.